Hello everyone, this is Mr. Review IEM Battle and a showing of what the differences are between these two models. We've got, for your delectation and delight, the Tin Hi-Fi T3 and the Tin Hi-Fi P1, both from Linsol, and I bought them myself from Linsol in China, and I bought them on a Saturday and I received them the next Friday. So what's that, 6-7 days, 6.5 days, something like that, with free worldwide shipping. So that was excellent. I run them generally through my Onkyo DPS1, which I have got linked in to a FiiO E12A headphone IEM headphone amplifier, which is apparently particularly built for the IEM market, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. What I bought from them, I purchased the extra tin that they sell, and I also bought the 2.5mm balanced cable, because the DAP that I've got does have 2.5mm balanced. You can't actually see it, I haven't made a hole through it in there yet, and again I'll come to the cable and why I'm not using it at present. This comes with, just check I'm recording, so this case here comes with the P1. You don't get a case with the Tin 3, but I'll go through what I'm doing currently. You get a range of tips with each one. You get a bunch of grey ones, narrow and wide bore, and a couple of foams, and you get a couple of foams and again a range of narrow and wide bore with the T3. Now the T3 was for me was a right pain in the ass, a bit like your daddy's. It's a right pain in the ass to open. I ended up tearing this outer box, no big deal really, but I do like to keep my boxes. And you had the earphones sitting, or you could see them presented really nicely in the case there. And it opens just like so. A little bit of lovely little felt if you're into that kind of thing, touchy feely stuff. It's probably, actually, it feels a bit like your mum's muff after about 7 days of new growth. That's how soft it is, so that'll give you an idea. And then under there you were presented with the wire, which I'll come to in a moment, and your spare tips, obviously, and it's always good to have a spare tip, and the worst instructions I have ever seen. Yes, it's a Chinese brand, and they're obviously in Chinese, which is fine, but they're also in the world's worst pidgin English that I've ever seen. You get the specifications on the bottom, so you can have a close look at that if you wish, whether that's straight or not, who cares. There you go. However, you may see something down here which says pot earphone method. For earphone, it's not difficult, but it takes time and skill, and then it goes on to real bad English. I assumed it was burning that they were talking about, and I completely forgot all about it, which I'll come to shortly. But really nice presentation on the Tin T3. P1, a little bit more opulence, I guess. Nice outer box, and you had the box that then opened up to reveal, ta-da! Well, it didn't reveal that, it revealed that with what should have been the two earphones there. Bring it back into view. There should have been the two earphones here. Unfortunately, one of mine had fallen out, which is apparently the norm. And you had the box there and the instructions somewhere. But the instructions for this one were a whole lot better. So, well done, Tin Hi-Fi. There we go. Smaller instruction book. But those instructions actually had virtually perfect English. I didn't read them all the way through, but the bits that I read were perfect, and it actually talked about burning, and there's a nice little bit of branding in silver embossing inside the case, all nice and felt and leathery, again, a bit like your mum's muff. Not quite as nice as that one, so maybe that's more like your auntie's muff, who knows, I don't know the two which you prefer. Okay, so let's move the boxes out of the way. Now, the P1s, which I have got in this box here, This is all going to be a bit confusing to begin with, unless you know already what cables come with what. The P1s, these earphones, I'm trying to get it centered on a different camera. The P1s, beautiful, shiny metal, fingerprinty if you've got greasy fingerprints, so I would suggest wiping them after every time you've used them, otherwise they might start to stain. That's what I read somewhere. I thought you must have pretty dirty fingers to stain them. It's a stainless steel, i.e. it's stain free. So those came with this big ring box and with this cable. So the P1s come with the copper cable. The T3s, you might not be surprised to find out, didn't come in the box and came with this silvery gold cable. Now, I kind of bought the T3s because I preferred the cable. If I'd have known the balanced cable was very similar, I might well have just bought the P1 with the balanced cable, because you got a $10 discount buying the two together. So these are this is normally $30 and I got it for $20 because I bought it with the earphones. And I ummed and ahed about buying the T3s for a while, and I thought, well, if I don't get them now, I'll probably get them at some point and I might be disappointed or whatever. Anyway, I'm glad I did, because it made me realise how much or how important tip management, tip changing, tip rolling, whatever you want to call it, is. I normally use Dakoni bullets. I saw Z Reviews do most of his videos. He uses them. I think haven't seen him, but he's obviously got slightly same sized ears as me. There we go. That wasn't fucking hard to say. I've normally got Dakoni bullets on these. I'd had them on for about a week, keeping them clean. So I thought I'd take them off and clean them, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Initially, I didn't use the tips that come with the T3s, which are these grey memory foam type tips, because I didn't know if I was going to keep them anyway, even though I love the cable. But $70 just for a cable is a lot of money to pay. So I put Dakoni bullets on these as well, and these are the ones I tried first with their own cable. So to begin with, I was listening to T3s with the proper cable, but with Dakoni bullets on. And oh my God, to say I was disappointed is an understatement. And that was my fault. And it took me a day and a bit to realise it was my fault. And that was when I'd started playing with the P1s. Basically, the T3s, whether you've got the T2s or the T2 Pros, apparently the T2 Pros are more trebly than the T2s. These have got a similar style to the T2s, so there's slightly elevated bass and a slightly elevated treble. To me, the treble was really highly elevated, and I popped on Adele, Rolling in the Deep. Nice deep voice. It's got some. It's not particularly well recorded album, very highly processed. However, the bass line came through quite nicely. But as soon as she started singing and hit some S's and some T's, whoa, it was bloody painful on the ears. I then put Simple Minds Waterfront on, quite an eclectic mix, I know. And there's a sort of there's a running bass line, and then some cymbals crash for a few seconds, and oh geez, I don't think my ears have felt such pain. So I very quickly and incorrectly discounted the T3s, put them back in the box, put the wire away, and basically for the reason of selling them on eBay. I'm just going to pause here because my camera's going to run out. Okay, so we should be back online about now. So I put the basically T3s back in the box, back in the white outer box, on the side to sell to eBay. I then opened up the P1s and again took the did they come with tips on them? I can't remember. I've got a feeling the P1s didn't actually come shipped with any tips. Could be wrong there, but I don't think they did. So I popped Dakoni bullets on them straight away because they fit my ears really, really well. And the sound on these just enveloped me like a big fat hug from your mum. Now, like, they're really, really good. Really rich in detail, no elevation to the bass, the mid-range or the treble in particular, but just phenomenal detail across the entire range. And I thought, well, there we go, that's what I was hoping for. Now, the other earphones that I use are the Sound Magic E80s, highly underrated or not heard of. And I was kind of comparing the two back and forth, and the Sound Magic E80s have got a little bit more bass, what I classed it as more bass. I then came to start to understand what people talk about with slow bass and fast decay and roll off and all that kind of stuff. And realised that the P1s were given a lot more detail. The sound stage across the range was brilliant, and the instrument separation was excellent. The Sound Magic E80s are still a fantastic pair of headphones, but they can't match up with these. They're very close, I have to say, and for what I paid for them, I paid full retail for these, and for what I paid for the Sound Magic E80s was nowhere near full retail. It's quite a difference in money, but not so much of a difference in sound enjoyment. However, once I then started listening really properly with the P1s, I quickly fell in love with them. At that time, I had this copper cable on, because that's what came with them. And you may have seen the reviews, but I really couldn't get on with this cable. Yes, it's braided, but it's quite a loose weave, and that, you know, I just had images of one of these weaves being caught and snagged on something. Your mom's zipper when I'm taking it. No, getting snagged on something and just tearing one of the wires. Probably completely unfounded, and as I'm still using it, I'm using it anyway. So I was playing around with the Sound Magic E80s and the P1s, going backwards and forwards with, as I say, various different types of music. The E80s work better with, you know, hip hop, dance, that kind of stuff. P1s much better with vocals, particularly the female vocals. I listen to a lot of blues, acoustic blues, Louisiana blues, that kind of stuff, as well as a broad range of. I'll go from Dr. Dre to whoever you want. Anyway. And these work brilliantly. They haven't got the best bass in the world, but the bass is there. It's just not. It just doesn't dominate the music like it does on the E80s, and that was more apparent when I started putting on some well-recorded music. I've got Alison Krauss Union Station, the CD called New Favourite. Can't remember what the very first song on the track is called, but it was the first song on the track. And after some time, 20 seconds or so, kind of little bass line drops in and out of the song throughout the song. You can hear it with these, but it doesn't dominate in the way that it does on the E80s. But what I did find was, when I started listening clinically, if you want to call it that way, or critically, if that's another word, the Sound Magic E80s, that bass line, yes, it was a bit more elevated, but it stayed longer and then started to interfere with the vocals that came in on the next, what's it called, on the next rhythm part, whatever. Whereas it didn't happen on the P1s. I happened to take the Diconia Bullets off for some reason and popped on a different set just to see what the difference was. And oh my word, the sound on these then went right down the shitter. It really did. And that was quite late at night. So with that in mind, I thought I'm going to pull out the T3s again and try a different tip, because I'd only tried them with the Diconia Bullets. And as soon as I tried a different tip with a narrower bore or a narrower hole, which I discovered, which most people probably already knew, it takes away some of that sibilance, and they were a much nicer earphone to listen to. Now, I still can't play them at the same volume as the P1s, because the treble does come to the fore a little bit still, too much for my liking. So if you like trebly music, you will love these earphones. However, they're brilliant with the kind of music I listen to. Blues, mainly male vocals, they sound excellent on. The instruments, you know, acoustic guitars, electric guitars, all that kind of stuff, anything that's within the blues realm, unfortunately, with the exception of female vocals, and I don't know what it is, but the S's and the T's on the majority of female vocalists really stand out and really do start to get a little bit distasteful. And it's a real shame, because I like to listen to a number of female vocalists, particularly in the blues range. However, as long as I don't turn them up too loud, so I'm using them for moderate or just like slightly below moderate listening. Maybe I'm doing something else at the time, you know, getting tea ready or doing some work around the house. And my music isn't as important to me at that moment, but I just want good quality. That's what I'll be using the T3s for. Lovely bass, excellent mid-range, for my taste a little bit high treble, and not too loud. And the reason I should say before I come on to the P1s, I've swapped the cables over purely and simply because I prefer the look of this cable. I think it looks more in keeping with the P1s than this does. This looks like a cheaper cable, and looks don't matter. However, chopping and changing between the two, I couldn't discern any difference in any bass, mid-range, treble, soundstage, whatever you want to look at. There was no difference in sound with either of these two cables, which was a bit weird. And that was also the case, I did mention, I'll come back to it, with the 2.5mm balanced cable. My DAP, as I say, does have 2.5mm balanced. Unfortunately, as the P1s take a little bit more juice than the majority of IEMs, it doesn't really drive this DAP, whether it's on 3.5mm or 2.5mm balanced, doesn't really drive the P1s to the level that they require to sound their best, which is why I'm running them off the FiiO E12A, I think it is, headphone amplifier. And this does not have a 2.5mm balanced input or output, which is why I'm using it on the 3.5mm. However, when I did have it on the 2.5mm balanced, I had to crank the volume up to 60, and it was listenable, but it wasn't really showing what they can do. I chopped and changed between the 2.5mm balanced and the 3.5mm, and personally I couldn't tell any difference with anything. I might try it again once I've got more used to them on the cable, and then I might pop that on, because apparently you get a little bit better soundstage. However, the soundstage on the P1s is nothing short of excellent. It's not the widest, but to be honest, they're IEMs, so it's not going to be the widest in the world, because they're going directly into your ear canals, directly into your head. The soundstage of them, if you've got the vocalist here, you've got the guitar maybe over here, you've got the piano over here, you've got the drums going on over here, you've got something else, sub bass going on over here, you've got the backing vocals going on over here, and they are all distinct from each other. None of them jumble up anywhere in any way, shape or form. I haven't done as such critical listening with the T3s. As I say, these are more for just having around, listening to enjoy them. And it's not really a comparison video either, to be honest, because these are half the price of these, and it's very different technology. Just get those done there. So my recommendation would be buy both of them if you can afford them. If you can only afford the T3s, get them, because they're excellent. If you can afford the P1s but not the T3s as well, do not get the T3s first and then save up for the P1s. Get the P1s first. I'm just going to pause the video again. Okay, where were we? Yes, so if you can only afford the price of the P1s, don't go for those, then try and save up for these. Get these ones first. You'll enjoy them a lot more. And then these are then more of a lesser purchase, being half the price, and you can save up over the next few weeks or whatever to get those. As I say, Linsol do free worldwide shipping, so you might as well do that. I'm lucky enough to be able to get them both at the same time, so I did. And my initial thoughts on these were, shit, what have I done? Oh well, I can probably sell them off eBay. Until I went back to them with tips, and in the end, as you can see, if you've seen any of the reviews or seen any pictures, I have gone back to the stock tips, because the treble isn't quite so elevated. It is still a tiny bit high for my taste at high volumes. That's why they look really clean. I've not used them a great deal. The P1s, I've actually put the stock tips on the P1s today because I had Diconii bullets on them I've had both of these now for about a week. I had Diconii bullets on them. I thought, well, I should really take them off and give them a wash. And the problem with the P1s, is my only complaint, is there's a little ridge running around the bit that protrudes into the ear canal. You can't feel it when the tips are on, but you've got the bit that goes into your ear canal like that. And I don't know if you can make that out. Just pretend that's a ridge. This would all be the same thickness, but this bit here, there'd be a little ridge going around, like a little extra ring going around, or almost like a very thin washer on top of that shaft. Now I'm assuming it's there to grip the earphones. In fact, it's probably more like that, where this is thinner. Then on this bit, there's a slightly higher ridge than the rest of this. So you can either just slip the ear tip onto there like so. However, what I found this morning was when I did that, when I took the Diconii bullets off and wrecked them getting them off, I put one of the Tin Hi-Fi silicone tips on, popped it in my ear to see what it was like, took it out, and the ear tip stayed in my ear. So clearly, that little ridge or the rim, additional rim over the top, you have to force it over there almost, and that holds that ear tip in place. And unfortunately, if you're putting foam ear tips on, it's very difficult to take them off without damaging them, as I've damaged the Diconii bullets. Hey ho, such is life, and that is my only gripe. If I can find a way of getting them off, I will, but it was almost like they were glued on. My wife suggested slipping some Vaseline on the shaft to make it easier. I'll let you make your own jokes about putting Vaseline on the shaft, but I found that highly amusing. So there you go, peeps. I hope that gives you some information about the Tin Hi-Fi T3s and the Tin Hi-Fi P1s. Very quick recap. For me personally, a slightly too much treble on the T3s. If I want to listen to anything more than a normal, say, listening volume, I do like to have my music a little bit louder sometimes. And the treble on this, particularly with female vocals and cymbals and hi-hats, gets very, very insistent very quickly and uncomfortable to me personally. It might not to you. And the P1s, beautiful across the range, bass, mid-range, treble. Nothing, if I say nothing stands out, it sounds bad. Everything is good. It's probably a better way of saying it. Maybe some people might complain, well, there's not much sub bass. You don't get the really deep hit of the bass. If you want that, then maybe the P1s won't be for you. However, you'll get the bass, but it'll be fast and it will be gone, and it won't interfere with the next part of the song as it's coming in. Okay, folks, I hope that helps in some way. As I said, I bought them direct from Linsol in China. Go on their website and you should still find them. And they do a whole range of other brands as well. I'm not a Tin Hi-Fi representative, so if you want to go and buy another brand, fair enough, then do so. But for my money, I shan't be buying any more IEMs from now on, because Z Reviews said these were as good as pretty much anything he's heard up to the £1,000 mark. Maybe there's one or two earphones around the £300-400 mark that are a little bit better in some areas. I think maybe more bass, but I'm not bothered about more bass. He's just done another video review for the Campfire Andromeda Golds, which he really rated, but that's like 1,200 quid. I ain't paying that much for a pair of IEMs. I would be replacing my DPS-1 first. And then, excuse me, if I get a higher quality Zap, I mean, these are, when they came out, they were about £400 UK, or 350, something like that. I paid a really good price for it. Somebody was selling a bunch off on eBay. He hasn't got any more. I think they've said 190, and really good value for that price. Okay then, folks, that's about that. As always, thank you all for watching. Take care, and I'll see you all next time with maybe something else. So just as an aside, I realise I probably haven't really helped you make a decision about either of them. All I will say is, if we take the analogy of when you're sleeping with your mum or your auntie, You like both of them, and they can both do different things for you. One's a lot cheaper than the other and will be a lot dirtier, but that's not to say you want one, you know, a little bit more delicate, shall we say, a little bit more, just a little bit of everything in a very good way, rather than there's one thing really well and a couple of things not so well. So that's the analogy, comparing with your mum when you're sleeping with your mum and your auntie. Do you prefer one over the other, or do you like them both equally? Okay, that's it. Take care.